With free agency underway, the rumors are swirling like a tornado, and two teams that seem on a collision course to talk and possibly make a major deal are the Oakland A's and the St. Louis Cardinals. Today, we have crossover trade talk with Jason Burke from Locked On A's on today's episode of Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford. I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter at JD Sports Radio. Follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals and Locked On A's your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast. You can also go to YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe and comment so you can interact with us. Hit the notification button so you know when new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Well, now that we have the offseason up and running, talking about trades, we're talking about free agents a lot, and one of the big names that's been brought up repeatedly, even got brought up last year at the trade deadline, or I should say last season, was that of catcher Sean Murphy of the Oakland A's. The Cardinals have a lot of interest in the catching market right now because Yadier Molina has retired. He's no longer with the team. Andrew Knizner is not exactly what you would call starter material. So we have to find ways to get a new catcher in St. Louis. We've talked about the free agency with Wilson Contreras. We've heard about Christian Vazquez, who was just with the Houston Astros, won a World Series title. But what about the trades? Trades are something that the Cardinals are usually pretty darn good at. They usually win more than they lose. And it seems that they have their eyes set on a couple of different people who they could acquire in a trade. Alejandro Kirk from the Toronto Blue Jays. And then we have got from the Oakland Athletics, one Sean Murphy. So, being the fact that I am not with the Oakland A's, we do have a man who knows a little something the Oakland Athletics, and that would be Jason Burke, the host of Locked On A's, joining us here today on Locked On Cardinals. Jason, appreciate you taking your time and coming out and hanging out with us today to talk some trades, man. How are things going on the West Coast?
Things are cold.
Well, wait,
by our standards, they are very cold. I'm wearing a sweatshirt right now.
What is cold for you, Jason? What do you think cold is?
I mean, it's like 45, 50 right now.
Okay,
it's cold.
That's acceptable. That's definitely acceptable because we're still sitting around like mid-50s here in the Midwest, so it's not
all
too
right.
shabby. We'll get by with that. That's a heat wave for us. We got weirdos out there wearing shorts, trying to do outdoor activities. This is beautiful, is what people in the Midwest would say. But
I am doing the news anchor thing. I am wearing shorts under this, so yes.
Attaboy. I'm also wearing pants. I'm not going to show them off right now, but they are Adidas pants, not shorts, because I consider this to be a little bit chilly. So, anywho, so the hot stove, as they like to call it, is underway. We haven't had any major signings or anything just yet. A lot of people throwing out qualifying offers and this and that. And you're hearing all the rumors that are going on throughout Major League Baseball because the GM meetings wrapping up in Las Vegas. And the Cardinals are looking for a catcher. They need a catcher. The Oakland A's have some catchers. You've got some great prospects who are set to come up, and it appears that are ready to take over in the major leagues. And you've already got a good one, though, in Sean Murphy, who just won a Gold Glove last year. Seems to be pretty darn awesome. Why? Well, first off, let me ask you, tell us why Sean Murphy is as good as he is. Like, what is it makes him special and puts him up as a different level of catcher compared to the average guy in the Major League Baseball?
I mean, honestly, he hasn't played that much in the major leagues. He played 2021 full season, 2022 full season, the pandemic shortened season in 2020, and then he got brought up for a little bit in 2019. So he's still kind of not like figuring it out. He's doing great. but he's still learning his way, and there's still room for him to grow. And that's got to be enticing for a team that's trying to get his services like the Cardinals. And he's already doing it at the major league level as well. He was a Gold Glove and Silver Slugger finalist this season. He didn't win it, either of them, but he was a finalist. So he was one of the top 3 in the American League in both of those. And that's a nice combination, I would say. And the second half, he really seemed to turn things around. He'd already been a little like 8% above league average. He'd already been pretty good, better than league average backstop there. But in the second half, he had a 140 WRC plus, according to Fangraphs. So that's 40% above league average. And if you're getting that from your catcher position, that's not bad. He hit 250 with a 332 on base this season. Those don't like stand out, like huge numbers, but for a catcher still kind of finding his way, that is a nice stat line right there. He also had a 758 OPS. So nice numbers, stuff that you would definitely want to acquire. And there's still room for growth from him as well. And something that doesn't get talked about a lot is the A's were bad in 2022. And him and Seth Brown were basically the focal points of the offense. They were the power guys. And for them to have the seasons that they had, I think were that's admirable, and showed that they could still go, even though they're getting the attention of the opposing pitcher. They still went out there and made improvements, and I thought that was impressive. And you put them with Arenado and Goldschmidt and some other guys. He's going to be an even better bat, you would have to think.
Yeah. If you put him around better hitters, he doesn't necessarily have to carry the load in St. Louis if they decided to acquire him and bring him into the Cardinals organization. So there's obviously a lot of positives about Sean Murphy. You mentioned it. He just kind of started the last couple of seasons to play at the major league level. He's 27 years old. What was it that took him so long to make it to the majors? Because, people hear 27 and they're kind of like, well, that's not too old if he was starting when he was 21. And that's not really the case as far as his major league career.
He had some bad injury luck for a couple of seasons there that slowed down his progress, but he hasn't been on the IL in a while. So he's been fine. He's healthy. He's fine.
You mentioned all of the positives. Obviously, he's got the glove. One thing that's been brought up a lot recently is the ability to frame pitches and to call games. Some people consider Wilson Contreras not good at that. I don't know really. I don't know the difference between if he is, framing pitches well or not. Does Sean Murphy, he won a Gold Glove? I'm assuming he knows what he's doing back there and is pretty good with pitchers. Yeah.
Yes, he is. I don't have the stat in front of me, but he's in the 90th percentile somewhere. It's like 92nd or 98th. One of those is really good, and one of those is also fairly good, and probably better than Wilson Contreras if you don't think that he's good. So yes, he is an excellent pitch framer. He's going to get those strikes for hopefully A's pitchers, but maybe Cardinals pitchers. We'll see.
So we mentioned all these positives that he's got going for him. Are there anything on the negative side of things? Because nobody's perfect. Is there something about Murphy that, you're kind of like, well, he does all of this really well, but then there's this that happens once in a while?
I mean, he strikes out a little bit, but he's got like really good raw power. He's a power bat. And I think that part of his evolution this year was cutting down on those strikeouts a little bit and get going the other way, getting hits and just doing some of that stuff. So that's still a little bit of a work in progress, but he can hit the ball a long way. And that's part of the other side of that coin as well. So strikeouts are a little bit of a concern, but his defense is fantastic. He'll be fine.
Yeah. What about personality wise? What kind of guy are we looking at in Sean Murphy? Is he kind of a quiet guy the way like Paul Goldschmidt is, just goes about his business? Or is he somebody that enjoys talking to the media and is somebody that would have a personality?
He's more of a quiet guy. I mean, early in the season, he got hit on the backside. I will watch my language, on his backside. And
his buttocks.
His buttocks. I believe it was his left buttocks.
Yeah.
And that went viral, at least locally. I don't know if you guys saw it. And there was a bunch of, GIFs and memes made out of that. And that kind of stuck with him all season. And he seemed to have fun with that, but he wasn't out there, going looking for the attention. He just does his thing, and he controls the pitching staff very well. He works with them, and he's a great catcher in general. And I think that, with Yadier Molina retiring, if you're looking for a guy that you might be able to sign to a long-term deal, Sean Murphy is a pretty good bet, honestly. He'd be a very nice replacement for Yadier Molina, in my view. And that's why I talked to you guys first, because I was like, the Cardinals seem to make a lot of sense. Like in the NFL, when you have your Peyton Manning and you're like, oh, well, we need to go get another one of those because we don't know what to do with a crappy one. It's like that. So I feel like there's some of that incentive for the Cardinals as well. Is that accurate or no?
Definitely, because whoever they bring in is going to inevitably be compared to what Yachty did for 20 years. And I keep trying to tell people, like, there's not going to be another Yachty that just comes in and you get him for another 10 years or so. Yeah. But if you can get somebody that can give you both things, like be a positive person at the plate as well as behind the plate, because defense is quite important to the Cardinals franchise. They've always kind of, prided themselves in getting good defense. You saw all the Gold Gloves they won last year. They got a couple more this year. And they love having somebody behind the plate who is good with the pitchers, but is also dangerous, can throw runners out. And Murphy obviously has a very good arm, is good at throwing out would-be runners. And the other side of it, too, is no offense, but he's played on some not-so-great teams with maybe not-so-great pitchers that maybe aren't holding runners on quite as well. And makes the numbers skewed a little bit. But he just seems to make a lot of sense for the Cardinals as far as what they're looking for, because they've made a point to say, well, we don't want to subtract too much from the defensive side just to get a lot more offense. And then you mentioned the years. You've got Contreras, who's going to be 31, is going to be very expensive this year because there are people jumping all over this. And then you've got Murphy, who's up for arbitration, which is why the A's are going to try to move him, because they don't want to have to pay for that. And you've got great prospects at the catching position ready to come up, right?
Yes. Shea Langeliers made his big league debut at the end of 2022. He was acquired in the Matt Olson deal, trades. And so there's definitely a load of guys. And Tyler Soderstrom's coming up. He's probably going to move to first base, but people keep saying he's a catcher. And I'm like, sure, I guess if you want to have all of the somebody's going to be at first base at some point, and Tyler Soderstrom makes the most sense. And then they just drafted with their first pick in the 2022 draft, Daniel Susak. So, they've got a lot of very good catching talent in the minor leagues. And I think that they don't have to trade Murphy by any means, but by moving Sean Murphy, then they can also move guys up when they need to, as opposed to having both Shea Langeliers and Sean Murphy in the big leagues, just basically holding everything up. So you're going to have to move him at some points, and may as well get a bunch of prospects for him too.
Yeah, strike while the iron is hot. That's the idea, and it's something Oakland's usually been pretty darn good at, is knowing when it's time to move somebody to get the biggest haul possible, because they're playing with a payroll that isn't like everybody else's. So to overpay for somebody like Sean Murphy and then have these young guys who are way cheaper just sitting there, doesn't make a lot of sense for the Oakland A's franchise. So hence why he would be available this offseason. So we're going to talk more about different trade options here momentarily, because we've both sent back and forth some offers. Some of them were not liked very much by somebody not named JD. And then there's ones that were said that let's talk about them. Let's see what we can negotiate here. So we're going to get into that next here on Locked On Cardinals and Locked On A's with the crossover episode here today. But first, make sure you guys are heading over to a place that I enjoy going to, and that is betonline.net. It is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You get the latest odds. You get the latest trends for every professional and amateur league that's out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, and judging by the fact that you're listening or watching this one right now, you probably do. So BetOnline also has podcasts available too. Not saying they're going to be any better than what we have here at Locked On Cardinals and Locked On A's, but they're there for you if you want to browse through them. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Thursday Night Football last night, you had the Panthers rumble over the Falcons to cover the spread. This weekend, the Titans are only -3 at home against the Denver Broncos, who for all purposes have kind of stunk this year. But, You've also got the health of Derrick Henry, which might be an issue. We don't know what's going to happen with him. They're coming off of that game where they almost beat the Chiefs, which was kind of miraculous. The fact that they hung around and were hardly throwing the ball. So you've got that game that's kind of piquing my interest. Same thing with the Bills at home against the Vikings. Maybe no Josh Allen this weekend, and that makes this a totally different story. But right now, Bills favored by 3. Dolphins only 3.5 favorites at home against Cleveland. These are just some of the games that you might be interested in. College basketball, obviously, has begun and is in full swing. Jason, do you root for anybody, being in the Oakland area? Raiders, because they come and gone and come and gone? No? Okay.
No, when I was coming up as a youngling, the Raiders were gone. So it was Niners country for me. So, if I root for a team, it's probably the Niners.
There you go. I'm actually a Packers fan. I grew up growing up in St. Louis. I didn't have a team, and then the Rams showed up, but I'd already kind of given my heart to Green Bay.
Yeah.
So it was kind of rough to you don't want to have two in the hen house at the same time.
Yeah.
So Green Bay, which has not. So your Niners have actually been total enemies of me for a couple of years now. You got their number, man. But head to the website today, or you can use your mobile device so you can learn more at BetOnline, where the game starts. Once again, it's a crossover episode here at Locked On Cardinals and Locked On A's. Jason Burke is joining us, and if you haven't given him a follow on Twitter, you see his Twitter handle there right below his beautiful face. And then don't forget to follow Locked On A's as well. They're obviously going to be a part of discussions with numerous teams when it comes to making moves this offseason, because Oakland's always one of those teams that's just kind of wheeling and dealing and trying to continuously get as many prospects as possible. Now, me and you have come up with a couple of different trade scenarios that we thought might be fair deals. All right. So I'm going to start with the one that you completely annihilated and said, I don't like any of these dudes that you're offering me whatsoever. So this is the one that I brought up on the Locked On Cardinals podcast the other day. And it has Alec Burleson, who's one of our top 5 left-handed hitters in the organization. Nolan Gorman also was our number 1 prospect going into the year before getting called up. You've also got Dakota Hudson, who was coming off his Tommy John surgery, and he's still 27 years old and is just kind of getting things back together. And then we had Jordan Montgomery, left-handed pitcher that they got from the A's from the Yankees at the trade deadline. And it's just somebody that I thought you could put in there because he's got value being a left-hander. He's going to be arbitration eligible here, so he's going to get a raise, but it might be a guy that the A's would be interested in to trade for and then flip him later on and get even more prospects back for him. In return, we've got Sean Murphy and then Seth Brown, who I think fits a lot of needs for this Cardinals team because they're on the lookout for a veteran left-handed hitter who can pound right-handers. And they love a guy who can play just about anywhere. And that's something that Seth Brown brings to the table. He can play all of the outfield positions. He can DH. He can also play some first base, which the Cardinals are trying to fill now that Albert Pujols is no longer with us. So looking at that trade, tell me about how bad that is, because you didn't like any of that really when I sent it to you.
Okay, so I've grown to like Burleson just a little bit more.
Okay.
But Nolan Gorman, he struck out a whole bunch, and his glove was not great even at second base. So really, where's he going to play if you're not really trading for a second baseman? You can just convert somebody to second base, which the A's are kind of trying to do right now with Jordan Diaz, one of their best hitting prospects who doesn't really have a defensive position. So they got a bunch of guys that could play second base in theory right now. And I mean, Nolan Gorman would make sense, but he's not like a sure thing with the bat either. So we'll see. He's got some good power, and that's enticing. But the A's have been going more towards guys that strike out 20% or less with a lot of their recent acquisitions. And so Gorman doesn't quite fit that. And then, Jordan Montgomery has 1 year of control left. Dakota Hudson he's fine, I guess. Does he have 1 year of control left too? I forget, but
I believe I think he's got a couple left.
Yeah, but he's an older guy, and the A's have traded for older guys. Like they got Adam Oller in the Chris Bassett trade, and he's an older guy, but he hadn't been in the big leagues yet, so he had 6 years of control left. So it didn't quite fit what I think the A's are trying to go for. I wrote something about this on the site that I run, Inside the A's. It's an affiliation with Sports Illustrated. And the A's generally in their trades go for one big leaguer, one guy in the upper minors and one guy in the lower minors. That's kind of their formula for getting a trade together. And you got some guys in the majors, and then Burleson, who's been both in the major or in St. Louis and also in AAA, so he would be like the upper minors guy. But there's not that lower minors guy necessarily, and so I'm like, I don't know. And do they want 2 veteran pitchers? That was my pushback there. I think so. Yeah, it sucked. It was a horrible trade, JD.
Yeah, but basically we went to that baseballtradevalues.com website, and that just mathematically added into, it looked like it was equal and actually went above what the A's with Murphy and Brown would be. And just so you know, Nolan Gorman is actually a third baseman who they moved to second because that Nolan Arenado guy is over there at third, and he's not going anywhere. So that is why he's playing second base, but he's got a cannon for an arm. He's got a third baseman's arm, and they're trying to just move him to second base, and he only had 1 year learning under that, so hence why things are a little difficult for him over there. But all of that makes sense. Now, another thing about that trade that you pointed out is the A's don't really want to move Seth Brown. In fact, they really like him because he's not going to cost them a lot just yet, so they don't need to move him, right?
Yeah, they don't need to move him at all. He was asked, the A's GM, David Forrest, was asked about that specific question during the GM meetings yesterday, I believe, on MLB Network. And he was like, hey, they asked, is he available? Like, what's going on? And he kind of smirked. He was like, he's been a popular guy these meetings. And he basically said, no, I'm looking forward to him continuing to grow in Oakland next year. And I mean, usually he'd be more cagey, I think, that if he was going to not trade him. So the answer that he gave seemed to say he's going to be in Oakland. He's making the major league minimum next year. Where are we going to find that production for that price? We don't need to move him yet. And I also could make the argument, I did this on my show yesterday following that comment, where I'm like, maybe you could trade him though. Like, obviously I want Seth Brown to stay because the A's need something to watch next year, or A's fans need something to watch next year. But he's also 30 years old. He's going to be 31 next July. So is he going to be part of the next group anyway? Maybe you do move him. So I don't know that he's going to hold up a trade, but I don't know that they're actively trying to trade him, is where I'm standing right now, I think.
Yeah, he's not in the area where Murphy's going to get a raise here, and he's not to that point yet, which is something I wasn't aware. I thought he was coming up on it. He's not there yet, which makes sense why Oakland's like, well, we don't have to. He's fine. We can afford him right now. All right, so Jason then turned around, and after he tore my trade to pieces, ended up sending me one. And this is the one that you brought up that you thought the A's would be interested in. So you've got Sean Murphy, who will be the centerpiece of all of these, by the way, in case you're wondering. You've also added Paul Blackburn in on this one. Mm-hmm. And in return for the A's, you were looking for Tink Hintz, who's one of our top pitching prospects in the organization. Mm-hmm. Matthew Liberatore, who was our number 1 pitching prospect going into last year. And then you've got Mason Wynn, who's our number 2 overall prospect. And it is one of the guys. Hold on, we got to get you off the screen. There you go. Show them what you were doing. There you go, Jay. Right.
That's a good-looking trade. I got to say, it's a good-looking trade. You guys are giving away less value, honestly. I think that's a better trade for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, according to the trade values, 54.70 to 52.50, because the last one I put up there was in the 60s for what the A's were going to get. My side of this would be that the Cardinals seemingly have no interest whatsoever of moving 2 guys in their organization, and that would be Jordan Walker, who's their top prospect, and Mason Wynn, who's their number 2. And I almost think that the reason why they're not even touching any of these superstar free agent shortstops that are out there this offseason is the fact that they think Mason Wynn's going to be that next guy and it's going to be something special. So I just don't see them trying to add Mason Wynn into any trade. Now, would the A's settle for anything below one of those top guys? Like, in your honest opinion, is that what it's going to actually take to pry Sean Murphy from Oakland?
I mean, probably not, because that's not necessarily how the A's always operate. I mean, when the A's were trading Frankie Montas, after we saw what Luis Castillo went for, we were like, oh man, we are getting so many prospects. And then we're like, yeah, we did fine, I guess. That's a good return, I suppose. But there was no Peraza, there was no any of that stuff. So we're like, all right, sure. And now, I mean, now they have to trade one of those guys if they want Sean Murphy. So that's beside the point. We're talking about the Cardinals. Yeah, I mean, you could maybe swap out Mason Wynn for like Lars Nootbaar. He's another guy that interests me, but I would prefer to switch out Liberatore for Nootbaar if I was going to be making adjustments. Liberatore is the guy that I'm actually lowest on, just based off of last season. He had a 5 ERA in both the majors and in AAA. His walk rate was a little bit iffy at the major league level, and the A's like guys that can control the ball a little bit more. Is that like an always thing, or is that like a specific thing, like he was making his big league debut kind of thing?
He struggled a little bit the last couple of years. Like you'll see these moments of brilliance from Matthew Liberatore. Will have this game where you're like, there he is. There's the guy, the first round pick that we traded for. And then you see him struggle for like 2 weeks where he's just kind of all over the place. So it's tough. It's honestly tough because we want him to be worth more so we can get something for him because, to be honest, I think a lot of us, especially fans, are disappointed in what we've gotten for Matthew Liberatore, because he just hasn't really lived up, and he's still very young, and I want to give him time to grow, but patience isn't the name of the game really anymore. You want to win now, and that's, why we're doing shows like this, because we want to get all the dudes. We want all the cool guys. You offered, that's the only offer that you threw back at me, but I want to kind of counter things with 2 more offers to you. So let's bring up this other one. So I left Matthew Liberatore in there. Now, you mentioned that you don't have any interest in Dakota Hudson, really. I was just thinking the reason why I keep bringing him in is because he's like major league ready, and maybe that's somebody he's a sinker baller, so he's a guy that maybe he'd be good in the bullpen as somebody to get those double plays out of the pen. But then we've also got Lars Nootbaar, who you mentioned you are interested in. So swapping him out instead of having Mason Wynn in there. And then we've also got a youngster, a 17-year-old shortstop who was actually I believe it's the 10th best prospect. Let me double check. Yeah, 10th overall best prospect in the Cardinals organization. His name's Jonathan Mejia. He's at rookie ball. Again, 17 years old, 6 feet tall, 185 pounds, but they seem to like what he offers so far. And in return, Sean Murphy, obviously. And then a guy that you and I talked about just between each other was Ramon Laureano, who had the suspension, but from all accounts is a pretty decent outfielder. Now, what is it about Laureano that the Cardinal fans would be interested in if he was part of a deal?
He's got a cannon of an arm. It's gone viral a few times on baseball Twitter and all that stuff. Baseball Twitter might not exist soon.
It's true. We're in shambles on Twitter right now. Who do you trust anymore?
Oh man, this guy. No, but Laureano, he's a great defender. They had to move him over to right field because they got Christian Pache this year, and Laureano wasn't as good in center field. I'll be honest, he wasn't as good in center field this past season. But right field or center field, I think that he would be fine. It's just a matter of him staying healthy for a full season because he had the suspension in 2021. He was still serving that in 2022, and then his season ended with a hip surgery this year. So we missed the last month of the year. And I mean, if he can stay healthy, he's got some stuff. And I think that maybe this season his numbers were a little bit down just because he was on a bad team and there wasn't a lot around him. So he was like, whatever, I'll show up and do this. But if he's on the Cardinals playing for, a spot in the playoffs, he's a fiery guy. He will go out there and he will play his butt off for you. So I think that a change of scenery might be good for him, honestly. And also he's going to be making $3.9 million. So why not?
Yeah, and he's just a couple of years removed from a big season where he hit 288 with 24 bombs, which, Cardinal fans are like, oh, yeah, is that what he did? And that's before COVID happened, and then he got suspended for the, we're cheating a little bit there, and then, obviously some injuries, but it's a guy, like you said, he's not great in center field, which is great because we don't need a center fielder. We got Dylan Carlson there. We could put him in right, and especially if you're moving Lars Nootbaar, who is a fan favorite in St. Louis. Everybody loves him, and they love the spunk that he brings to the clubhouse and his energy. Also a guy that's got a great arm in right field, left-handed bat. But I don't know. I haven't been sold on him as an everyday player yet, but I think it's just because we haven't seen him enough. So I don't know. But in the second half last year, a lot of his stats and a lot of the things showed that, he's pretty good and he's a lot better than maybe his numbers showed at the end of the season. Now, you looking at that trade, is there anything about it besides the Dakota Hudson that you're kind of like, I got no interest in that?
I'm intrigued by it, honestly. I like Lars Nootbaar. I checked out his Baseball Savant page, and everything was red. Everything was really, really, really good. And I mean, his expected stats weren't quite there, like you would think with those those percentile rankings. But at the same time, I think that it's just a matter of playing time, and the A's can give him playing time. And a guy with a name like Lars Nootbaar is going to do very well with the Oakland fans. Mejia, I don't know a ton about him, so sure, I suppose we'll see how that goes. But I think that this scenario would put a lot more emphasis on Liberatore being a hit as opposed to him being maybe the third piece, like he in my head was in the one that I sent over.
Okay, all right. So we've got one more scenario here that I want to throw up to you. Once again, I keep throwing Hudson in, and that's just so you have a major league ready guy. But instead of putting in the 17-year-old, I give you Joshua Baez. That is who I offer you here. Now, Joshua Baez is our number 11th ranked top prospect, and he was at A-ball this year, had injuries, so he started late in the year, 19 years old, but he is chock full of power. Lindsey Crosby from our MLB Prospects show here at Locked On loves him some Josh Baez, loves the power, the way he swings the bat, thinks he could be something. He's just very young at the moment. And in return, again, it's Murphy and Laureano. What are your thoughts on two outfielders coming your way, or would you prefer it to be switched out and have an infielder as a part of this deal?
I think that I'd be okay with this one. I'm intrigued. I just pulled him up real quick as I wasn't on screen, and he's got a 70 rated arm, and that's nice. That's two tools that I can bank on. You got power and arm, and I like that. So that's nice. Dakota Hudson can do whatever.
But I feel like I'm gonna have to do better than Dakota Hudson. I'm picking up what you're putting down on that one. So I understand.
Honestly, why. I don't know. I'm just like going down in the prospect list. I'm like, what about I don't know, number 26, Ryan Lutus?
Sure, take him.
Sure.
AAA, 23 years old, 6'5", 215. Yeah, he's somebody.
Yeah, he's a guy. Sure. I'd rather have him than Dakota Hudson.
Recently, we had the Cardinals' top pitching prospect on the show, and it's a name that I just didn't want to put him into the trades because I feel bad because we just had him on the show, and I hate to get rid of him already, but I feel like the guy Gordon Graceffa, who's our number 3 overall prospect, is starting to get a lot of attention, and I feel like, just being fair and being honest, that it's going to take a combination of somebody like him and another top prospect to go get Sean Murphy. These extra guys that I'm throwing in just because the website says that they're worth a lot doesn't necessarily mean that that's something that's going to move the needle for the Oakland A's to trade Sean Murphy to you. So, and you also got to remember too, you're competing with other teams who are trying to get Sean Murphy as well. Off the top of your head, who are some of those teams that are also interested in acquiring him?
There haven't been any substantiated rumors, but I would assume the Guardians could use an upgrade offensively since we saw them in the playoffs, and they also could use a backstop. The Yankees are always a topic, but they also have Jose Trevino, who is good. They'd have just a ridiculous tandem.
Just won the Gold Glove, He just took it from Sean.
Those are a couple. There's been other teams. The Red Sox, I think, need one after they traded Christian Vasquez. The Astros could use an upgrade, but I don't want him going there. So please, I will take Dakota Hudson from you.
Would they dare trade in the division to the Astros? They're arguably their top player.
You want to know how they got Ramon Laureano?
Yeah, that's true. That is how they got him.
I mean, they haven't done it as much recently since the Astros became good. So I don't think so. They also, traded for Jed Lowry a couple times from the Astros. They've done this before, but I don't know that there's still that same willingness to work together that there had been in the past.
Yeah. Well, I know Oakland and St. Louis have made some pretty big trades over the years. Most of the time, I mean, let's be honest, the Cardinals kind of fleeced you. You know, when we're talking Mark McGwire, we're talking Matt Holliday, Mark Mulder. I guess that one wasn't so bad because Mulder died basically 2 years after they got him.
The Mulder one I felt good about, honestly.
You got is that the Dan Herron trade? Did they get Dan Herron in that one? Yeah, and he was
Dan
pretty
Herron,
good.
Kiko Calero, and others. The Mark Mulder one, I feel like, sorry, not the Mark Mulder, the Mark McGwire one. I was young and very not new to baseball, but I wasn't like paying attention. I was like 12 when it happened. But I don't remember who the A's got back. It doesn't matter. But I remember seeing that Billy Beane was about to take over as the A's GM, and it was Sandy Alderson who traded him right before he was about to leave, so that Billy Beane's first move didn't have to be trading Mark McGwire because they needed to trade Mark McGwire. And so I feel like he was just going to kind of take whatever. And so I'm holding that one off to the side. That's not this tenure right here. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to say that that's okay. And then Stephen Piscotty, that one worked out well for a season for us. And you guys got Yaro Munoz for you guys and one other guy.
Well, that was under extreme circumstances because Piscotty's mom was sick, and it was just kind of like doing him a solid. Like, hey, let's get you home so you can be around for what's going to happen there. Which ended up being a cool move by both teams to just pull that off. Yeah. You know,
I really liked having him in Oakland. He provided some great memories for the fans of Oakland, and I was bummed that they DFA'd him this year. I was like, let him play out the contract. It's fine. What are we gonna do? But baseball's baseball.
Now, just so you know, Mark McGwire was traded for the combination of TJ Matthews, Eric Ludwig, and Blake Stein.
Ooh, I remember Blake Stein.
Legends in the Oakland uniform by all accounts. Really good stuff there. One other thing I wanted to show you too. I wanted to show you this real quick before we wrap things up because we're going a little long. But so growing up, obviously I liked McGwire. The Bash Brothers were a big deal back in the day when I was little. Loved the Cardinals, but it was fun to watch Oakland on TV. And I hated the fact, like, watching when the Dodgers beat them. Like, I was like, what is this? This is not the cool team. I want the cool team to win things. This is stupid. And then the Reds do the same thing and ruin it for them again. But my parents gave me this.
Yes.
Back in the day. Look at it. Look at the mullet.
That is such good hair.
And the autograph and the plaque 40-40. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Loved me some Jose Canseco back in the day. And I mean, nobody knew he was, the crazy person that he is, but I just wanted to point that out that I do have love for the Oakland A's.
They're a good time. I have nothing of the Cardinals, and I believe in Cardinals devil magic. I think that it's real. So I don't know if that hurts you or not. I just believe in it, and that's all.
Yeah, no, I can't blame you for that. It's too bad that it didn't work out this year in the playoffs for us. But that's why they're trying to improve, and that's why a lot of people think that making a trade with Oakland for Sean Murphy is going to be something that they're really after. In your opinion, just to wrap it up, what are the odds that something gets done with the Cardinals over everybody else for Sean Murphy?
I mean, I've circled the Cardinals as his landing spot for months now. I think that's where he goes. I have no insider information on that. It just feels like the right fit, and the Cardinals would feel like the team that would go and maybe give that extra piece because of losing Yadier Molina and wanting to keep that train going. And also, I think that he'd be a good Cardinal, honestly. There are guys that you can picture in like Cardinals red, and I'm like, he'd be good. I offered you Paul Blackburn because I think that Paul Blackburn would look good in Cardinals red. And he'd be like a solid like fourth or fifth starter. He'd be a nice depth option for you guys. And so Ramon Loretto, I don't know. He strikes me as more like a Blue Jay. But I think that it's likely, in my opinion, that the Cardinals are the team that actually do the bidding. The only team that I would be concerned about, honestly, would be the Guardians because they also have a lot of prospects.
A lot of young guys, too. That team was young last year.
So it's just a matter of which offer do the A's like more. It's not necessarily about what you offer. It's about the specific guys that the A's like more. So we'll see. But I like Mason Wynn, and I want Mason Wynn. And so I say the Cardinals.
I tell you what, if we trade Mason Wynn to the Oakland A's, they better go out and talk to one of these free agent shortstops because they're going to be hurting if they have to rely, heaven forbid something happens to Tommy Edman and it's Paul DeYoung stuck at shortstop again for the St. Louis Cardinals this year. People will lose their minds. So, but it's good to hear that Sean Murphy is one of those guys. Like when you talked about his personality, that sounds very Cardinal-like. It's business. I'm here to have a good time, but it's business. Let's win ball games. And that's something they're very much interested in. So, Jason, I appreciate you jumping in here and doing this crossover episode. And for those of you who are listening to us, we appreciate you for making Locked On Cardinals and Locked On A's your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. As always, be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube to both of our channels. Follow both of us on Twitter. You've got our handles there below, Jason. You can see that. Follow the pages of the Locked On Cardinals and Locked On A's. And I appreciate you guys listening in. You're the best fans of baseball for a reason. We'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals and Locked On A's.